Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to Testa and Neal Keep It Real right here on WWSU 106.9 FM or our YouTube channel. However you're listening to us, we appreciate it. I'm Shea Neal, alongside with me, Parker Testa. We have a huge show for you today. NBA Finals Game 1, Suns and Bucks. We'll talk all things NBA Finals in hour number 2, as well as in hour number 2, the MLB All Star game. We talked about the starters a little bit last week, but the reserves came out, the pitching staffs came out, and we also know 6 of the 8 players that will be in the home run derby. So All Star weekend less than a week away, Parker, and I'm excited to dive into it.
So am I. This is shaping up to be one of the really fun All Star games. You have Shohei Ohtani, who's been lights out. Everybody knows that. We talk about him almost daily on this show, and deservedly so. But yeah, I'm excited. We got the home run derby coming up. Shohei will be a part of that. I can't wait to see what he does there. And we got some NBA finals as well as, our American Conference college football preview. So I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's how we're kicking off the show today. American Football Conference, our first conference preview of the summer. And I'm excited because some of these non-Power 5 conferences, maybe casual football fans don't keep up with as much. But let me tell you, before we dive into this, the Americans got a lot of talent. You've got the UC Bearcats, UCF Golden Knights, Houston, Memphis, Navy, USF, even, some teams at the bottom that could really, surprise a lot of people this year. I feel like teams such as SMU, Tulsa, East Carolina, even Tulane. This is a team that this is a conference that I really, really like because it's 11 teams, and I feel like 8 or 9 of them could win this league.
Yeah, it's possible. All these teams look really good. And some names in this conference that you might have heard of before: UCF, UC, Memphis. There's so many teams in this conference that have really talented football, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Sure is. It sure is. So that's how. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Like I said, I'm in a really good mood, Parker. The Reds are about to win their 6th consecutive game. As you can see, I'm rocking my, kind of generic, but I am rocking a Reds jersey. Yesterday, to celebrate Independence Day weekend, I was rocking my red, white, and blue Joey Votto shirt. So we're bringing the Reds gear back. They're playing really good baseball. They're about to be 5 games over 500. And, they're now 3.5 games out of a playoff spot and 5.5 games out of first. And that may sound like a lot, but they have 4 games with the Brewers this weekend. So they could go into the All-Star break like within 2 games of first place.
Yeah, the Reds look really good right now. They have, they're a star-studded outfield with Winker and Castellanos right now, both All-Stars. So, the Reds are picking up the pace, and it's great to see.
Absolutely. And Winker and Castellanos have deserved the talk all year long, but it's the difference for the Reds has been 2 major things. 3 major things, I should say. The reason why the Reds are starting to pick it up. Luis Castillo's finally got his swagger back. Over the last, since June 3rd, almost exactly a month, Luis Castillo has the 5th best ERA in Major League Baseball at 2.03. He threw 7 innings tonight, only 1 run allowed. Luis Castillo's back, and that's really good news for Reds fans because this is a guy that when he's on top of his game, I firmly believe he's a top 10 pitcher in baseball, and I firmly believe he's the kind of guy that can win you playoff games.
Yeah, it's possible, and he's really good. He didn't have a good year up to this point, and he's another guy who's he's picking up the pace and playing really well right now.
He is, and so number 2, the bullpen finally getting their feet underneath them. They were the worst bullpen in baseball for about a month and a half. Over the last week and a half, their ERA is 1.16. And over the last month, their bullpen ERA, 7th best in baseball. So the Reds bullpen starting to figure it out. And that's even better because they're going to get TJ Antone, Lucas Sims, and Michael Lorenzen all back from injury in the next 3 weeks. So hypothetically, it can only get better. But Reds have really done a nice job finding some talent outside the organization to help out in that bullpen. 2 guys that have really done a nice job, Heath Hembree and Brad Brock. Brad Brock's looked like his all-star self from Baltimore this year with a 2.29 ERA. He's been great.
Yeah, he has. And the bullpen has been, something that, the Reds have prided themselves in all year long. And it's been really one of the better spots for them. So I'm really excited to see what the Reds continue to do, and it's going to be really fun to watch coming up here as we get closer, to the second half and getting into playoff time.
Absolutely. And then the final reason why I think this is the biggest reason why the Reds are starting to pick up the pace. Different guys are stepping up. For a month and a half, it felt like if Winker and Castellanos didn't have a big game, the Reds wouldn't win. But now we're seeing Winker and Castellanos are still having big games, but we're seeing how good have the rookies been for the Reds this year, where you have Vladimir Gutierrez, who's been a really solid starting pitcher. You have Jonathan India, who's been unbelievably mature for a rookie in terms of getting on base, almost a 400 on base percentage. He looks like a future all-star leadoff hitter. Tyler Stevenson hitting 285 with an 820 OPS as a rookie catcher. The Reds rookies have stepped up. And then, what warms my heart more than anything, Joey Votto looks really, really good this year. Over the last month, Joey Votto's hitting 295 with an OPS over 900, Parker. I don't think we're going to get MVP Votto back ever again. I think that ship has sailed. But this looks like fringe all-star Joey Votto. He can be that any sort of consistently. The Reds offense looks dangerous.
It does. You have, like you said, Votto as well as Winker and Castellanos, but, also, Tyler Stevenson has played well recently as well. So this batting order for David Bell is looking really strong right now.
It is, and it's going to be exciting to watch the Reds, like you said, as the second half gets underway. A lot of big tests for the Reds coming up in the next couple of weeks against they have 7 games against the Brewers, 3 with the Mets, and 3 with the Cardinals. So a chance for them to really emerge as a playoff threat, as a contender, and as the team to beat in the NL Central. So without further ado, let's get into the reason why we're here for hour number 1, and that's our college football preview, the American Football Conference. We're going to share a screen so you can see it and follow along with us if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, you'll still be able to hear us, obviously, talk about everything. So let's get this pulled up. The American Athletic Conference. Parker, this first page here is just kind of the projected standings from Phil Steele. I don't want to break these down in full because I think Phil Steele has the right to his own opinion. We'll make our own opinion as we go. But I think he hit the nail on the head here with these top 2. I think, obviously UC and UCF, I think, are the 2 teams to beat in this conference. And I think it's because of the 2 best quarterbacks in this conference, Desmond Ridder and Dylan Gabriel. We talked about them briefly when we did our top quarterback unit segment. I think these 2 guys are without a doubt the 2 best quarterbacks in this conference. And I don't think it's a stretch to say, Parker, whoever has the better season, I think wins the American.
Yeah. And I completely agree here. This one is really going to come down to quarterback play. And, UC and UCF have been, both these teams have been playing really well. And, they deserve to be at the top of this conference because they've just played really good football overall. And the quarterbacks are, 2 of the best in this conference and in all of college football. Both these guys are getting looks, from pro teams. I think Ritter's going to be among one of the top quarterbacks taken in the upcoming draft. But I'm excited to see what both these teams do. This conference is always entertaining and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it sure is. And like we said, UCF and Cincinnati look like the teams to beat, but that doesn't mean that this conference is a 2-team race by any means, because I love the Houston Cougars team a lot, Parker. This is a team that's very, very balanced. They don't have Derek King anymore, so their offense took a little bit of a step back, but I still think it's a top-tier offense in this league. I'd say it's a top 5 offense out of the 11 teams in this conference. But their defense is what really makes them stand out. A top-tier defensive line, maybe the best in the conference other than the UC Bearcats, who have one of the best defenses in the country. And they also have really good defensive backs, a really good special teams unit, and a really great coach as well. I'm very excited to watch the Houston Cougars play under Dana Holgorsen this season. I think UCF and Cincinnati deserves the hype, but I think the Houston Cougars are not far behind.
They're not. And they're certainly really good. And Dana Holgersen's done a fantastic job there. Like you said, they don't have Derek King anymore. But they're still a really talented team.
They sure are. The last thing I kind of want to touch on before we get into the team by team breakdown, Parker, is just just some of these. I think there's a big drop off we talked about in the quarterback play. You have Ridder and you have Gabriel, but then it drops off a lot in terms of quarterback play, but a lot of really talented receivers in this conference. You have, of course, one of the best receivers in the league. Jalen Robinson, just a sophomore, and he's already, I think, the best receiver in this conference. We'll also see a really talented receiver, Michael Young at UC, as well as Alec Pierce. A lot of talent across the board. I love the skill position players in this conference. It's not the deepest conference in terms of quarterbacks, but a lot of really good running backs, a lot of really good receivers, and a lot of really good defensive backs. So a lot of really good skill positions in the American.
Yeah, and it seems like more and more we're seeing some of these players from the American come out and they're playing well in the NFL. So the American Conference has to be doing something right because they're sending multiple guys from each of these schools through the draft and into the pros every single year.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to the first team that we're going to talk about here today, and that's the Cincinnati Bearcats. I think they are, as of right now, until I see everybody on the field, I think they're my pick to win this league. They were in the Sugar Bowl last season, had a really, really good year until went 9-1 until they lost to of course, Georgia Bulldogs in the Sugar Bowl. Georgia's no pushover team, obviously, Parker, but I think the reason why UC separates themselves from everyone else in this conference is just because of how good Coach Luke Fickell is. His 5th season at UC, one of the best coaches in college football, and that goes for any school in any conference. This team is very talented, but they're also very well coached. Luke Fickell's done one heck of a job.
He has, and developing this this really good defense has been what's given Luke Fickell all the credit in the world because like you said, this defense is one of the best in the country. They're very strong up front and they have a good secondary behind them to kind of back it up. So this defense is really talented, and with a guy like Ritter as your quarterback, you should win a good amount of games.
You should. And let's get into Desmond Ritter, a guy that I think is not only a candidate for American Player of the Year, but also the Heisman Trophy. Ritter comes into the season, the senior, the leader, the captain of this team, having one heck of a year a season ago, 2,100 yards, as well as 18 touchdowns, 600 rushing yards. They also have a really talented backup in Evan Prater, who's a top-tier recruit. So the quarterback room's really solid for UC, but we talked about that in the past. We'll see. They lost a big running back in Jared Dokes, but they have a really talented guy replacing him in Jerome Ford. But the real talent on offense here, besides Ritter, is that wide receiver. They have Trey Tucker, they have Michael Young, and Alec Pierce, both of who are juniors and both of who are top-tier receivers in this league. UC, expect them to put up a lot of points this year because not only Ritter, they also have 3 really, really good wide receivers.
They do, and to get being how good Ritter is, to give them really good receivers like they have is really scary. So what the Bearcats are, they're going to come out and they're going to throw a lot of things at you. So I'm excited to see what they do.
Let's really quickly, the last thing I want to touch on here for UC is their defensive backs. Their backs are great. They have one of the best defenses in college football, Parker. They're returning 7 starters, but they were one of the best defenses in the country last season. And they have a great defensive line. But after losing their defensive coordinator, Marcus Freeman, their talent lies in defensive backs. Ahmad Gardner, the really talented sophomore, huge cornerback, 6'2", 200 pounds. He was absolutely outstanding last year with 11 passes defensed. And he was first-team All-American as a true freshman. And then you also have Kobe Bryant, the senior, 6'1", 200 pounds. He's the ball hawk. He's the guy that gets the majority of the turnovers. So you have the physical guy in Gardner and the ball hawk in Kobe Bryant, 2 very talented corners. And I expect it to be the American equivalent of the no-fly zone.
Right, and this secondary, like I said, is really good. As good as their front 7 is, they have a really talented secondary here. With Gardner being the big, the pass defense guy, the more aggressive player, and like you said, the ball hawk, and Bryant. So 2 really talented corners, and some great safeties to go along with them.
Absolutely, and. Really quickly, their schedule. I give UC a lot of credit, Parker. They were upset that they weren't given more consideration for the college football playoff last year. So rather than pout about it and, just kind of complain all the time, they went out and they scheduled two really impressive non-conference games in Bloomington against the Hoosiers, who are a lot better football team than they were a few years ago under Tom Allen, and at Notre Dame in South Bend. I don't know if they win both of those games. I don't know if they win either of those games, but it's a big step in the right direction for them to get playoff consideration, scheduling two teams like that.
Yeah, it is. And Coach Fickle's done a heck of a job, trying to give his team some more notoriety, and some more looks at the, from the committee for the college football playoff. And if you want to get there, you got to beat teams like this, teams like Notre Dame, teams like Indiana, tough teams that, that they're going to give you a fight. So, all the credit in the world to Coach Fickle and this athletic department for putting together a really good schedule here.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the next team in the American Conference, the UCF Knights. The Knights, like I said, are also led at the quarterback position in Dylan Gabriel, the sophomore, coming off an outstanding season with 3,700 yards and 29 touchdowns. He was great, and he's going to lead this offense. They have very talented receivers as well in Brandon Johnson and Jalen Robinson. Jalen Robinson might be the best receiver in this league. Only a sophomore, only 5'9", but an elite route runner, elite speed, game-changing speed. I expect to hear the call all season long, Gabriel to Robinson, because it's something that I really expect all year.
Yeah, I do too. And they certainly have talented receivers here. And Gabriel is, one of the best, is it Ritter who's I think Ritter's the better player, as far as, in this conference goes at the quarterback position, but Gabriel certainly gives him a run for his money.
Absolutely. On defense, the Golden Knights are definitely very talented on defense, I should say. Big Cat Bryant, the transfer from Auburn, 6'5", 250 pounds, an NFL caliber guy. They have Ricky Barber, the freshman at nose tackle. Also a really talented Tremont Horace Brash at the other edge rusher spot. Great front seven, and then a really good talented freshman cornerback in Devontae Brown, 6'2", 180, and was one of the top corners in the country out of high school. So I'm excited to see this defense. Their front seven has a lot of experience, and their secondary has a ton of a potential as well. So,
yeah, they do, and this is one of the more talented defenses in this conference. Cincinnati's the better defense, but they certainly have really lots of talent here.
They do. Really quickly, let's go over the UCF schedule. They take on Boise State to start the year. That'll be a great quarterback battle between Gabriel and Hank Bachmeier with the Boise State Broncos. They also take on Louisville on the road. And then the big game that we'll be circling, Parker, October 16th, UCF and Cincinnati square off at UC. That could very well be the game that separates who wins this league.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And it's a tough test between both these guys. Who's going to win it? Is it going to be Ritter? Is it going to be Gabriel? Who's going to have better quarterback play? And I think better quarterback play in this game will really separate who's the better team in this conference. Gus Malzahn comes over from Auburn. After spending 8 years at Auburn, he takes over. For this UCF team who have been, have a long track record of having, great success. So we'll see if they can continue that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm excited to see this battle. I think it's one of the more underrated rivalries in college football between UCF and UC. Let's get on to the Houston Cougars. The Cougars trying to replace Derek King, of course. They will roll with Clayton Tune Jr. to start the season. He doesn't have a ton of experience. He started the last 2 games of the year, threw for 795 yards and 8 touchdowns. He definitely has the potential. But this is not a Houston team that we've grown accustomed to in years past. Offense is not their strong suit, Parker. Usually we're used to seeing a high-powered Houston Cougar offense. This team, known for being tough in the trenches, really experienced, really solid offensive line, a really strong defensive line, and a really well-coached team under Dana Holgerson. So it's a team that's going to win a lot of ugly football games, but it's a team that's not going to make a lot of mistakes.
No, they won't. And they've been coached up very well. This entire team, really has, they, like I said, coached up very well. Dana Holgerson's, done a heck of a job here. and that they, like you said, they lost Derek King, but they certainly have lots of talent with this team, and I expect them to be near the top of this conference.
Me too. This Houston schedule, I got to give credit to a lot of these teams in the American, Parker. They have scheduled some tough non-conference games. The Cougars start off the season with another fellow Texas team in Texas Tech. This will be a really fun one to watch as well, just to see how this Houston team looks right off the bat. And something to keep your eye on, Parker. Houston does not have to play UCF or Cincinnati. So if those teams slip up, Houston could find themselves in the American Conference Championship game.
Yeah, they could, and they, this is one of the easier schedules of this conference. Like you said, UC has Indiana and Notre Dame, and then UC also plays UCF, middle of the year. So, and like you said, Houston doesn't have to play either of those teams. So we'll see if they can take advantage of that.
Yeah, we will. Let's move on to the number 4 team in the American, the SMU Mustangs. The Mustangs are led by new quarterback Mordecai. Tanner Mordecai, who replaces Shane Buechele, the Texas transfer, who was the all-time leading passing leader in the history of SMU. What a year he had. Ulysses Bentley, one of the best names in college football, Parker, the redshirt freshman running back Ulysses Bentley. He was great last year in limited play. First team All AC or All American. I'm excited to see this guy play this year. So the duo of Mordecai and Bentley, very high powered. This SMU team could score a lot this season. The only thing that concerns me about this team, very inexperienced on defense, especially in that front seven. Are they going to have enough penetration to slow down other teams' offenses, or is it just going to be a lot of shootout games, which I think they can hang in shootout games, but I don't know if they can win shootout games.
Yeah, right. And this very high-powered, offensively driven league. Some of these teams are really pride themselves on offense, and others, are really talented on defense. Cincinnati's one of those teams that's really talented on defense. Even though you have a Heisman caliber quarterback and Ritter, defense is their strong suit. So we'll see if SMU can kind of work out the kinks of their defense a little bit and get through and get to the quarterback.
Absolutely. The UCF, or excuse me, SMU. I don't know why I said UCF. SMU is led by head coach Sonny Dykes, his 4th season with the program. They went 7-3 a season ago, but Dykes has experience with Louisiana Tech and Cal. He's done a nice job with SMU, and this is a guy that graduated from Texas Tech, Parker. Texas Tech hasn't, been at the top of the Big 12 or the Big 12 like they'd wanted to over the last couple of years. If SMU has a strong year and exceeds expectations, maybe we see Sonny Dykes go home and go back to his alma mater at Texas Tech.
Yeah, it's possible, and Sonny Dykes has done a heck of a job here at SMU. They sent some players to the draft this season or this past year. So we'll see if Sonny Dykes, if he has a good enough year, he may get some phone calls come next spring.
Absolutely. And I love these non-conference schedules for these Texas teams. The battle for Texas. We talked about a Houston going up against Texas Tech. Well, SMU is going to go up against TCU, and that's another very solid team out of the Big 12. So I love the fact that these SEC, not SEC, good Lord, what is wrong with me? These American teams are going up against these strong non-conference teams, because I think it's going to prepare them well for conference schedule, where there's a lot of teams that are going to be extremely competitive in this league and in this conference. And I'm excited to see how the non-conference preps some of these teams for the conference schedule.
Right. And you mentioned, the battle, of these Texas teams, SMU also plays North Texas, not a pushover team by any means, the mean green of North Texas, bring, talented football teams. So, they play Cincinnati, closer to the end of the year in Cincinnati. They have to play UCF at home, as well as TCU. So they really talented teams, and that's not to not to forget about Navy. They got to go to the Naval Academy and play Navy. So this is one of the tougher schedules here in this conference for SMU.
Absolutely. Let's move on to Tulsa. Tulsa is a team that really kind of came out of nowhere. They added Davis Brin, the sophomore, will be the starter this year, 6'2" on for Tulsa. But Shamari Brooks Sr., one of the better experienced running backs in this conference, he had a really strong season a year ago, and it's going to be him and Deneric Prince pacing the backfield for the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. J.C. Santana, Sam Crawford, a couple wide receivers as well, and really talented offense. I'm excited to see this Tulsa offense. They really, I think, exceeded a lot of expectations last year. Went 6-3. Head coach Philip Montgomery. He didn't have any head coaching experience until he got to Tulsa, and for a first job, I think he's done pretty well.
Yeah, he has. And he's led the Golden Hurricane, one of the better mascots or team names in this conference. Quite possibly in all of college sports. It's a great one. But as Philip Montgomery's done a fantastic job here with Tulsa. He really has.
Absolutely. And Tulsa. We've talked about all these teams having tough non-conferences. Tulsa, no exception. At Oklahoma State, and then you thought that was the hard game. They go the next week to Columbus and take on the Buckeyes.
Yeah, and you go further down, take on Navy as well, USF, and they got to play Cincinnati in Cincinnati. So really tough schedule here. This might be tougher than SMU's, and I think it is tougher than SMU's. So they start out with UC Davis at home, and then two really, really tough road games in a row. Going to take on the Cowboys, of Oklahoma State, and then traveling to Columbus, take on, Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes. So this is one of the tougher ones in this conference.
Let's keep chugging along here in the American and talk about the Memphis Tigers. The Memphis Tigers are led by Ryan Silverfield, about to enter his second year at Memphis. He went 8-3 in year number one. And they returned 8 starters on both sides of the ball. So I'm a little confused, Parker, why Phil Steele ranked this team so low, because they're bringing back Grant Gunnell, who had a really strong freshman season at Arizona, transferred to Memphis. They have Asa Martin, who had a really good year last year with the Memphis Tigers as a freshman, and then a really talented freshman in Javon Ivory, who's going to probably be their best wide receiver right off the bat. A really strong defense as well, led by the linebacker Thomas Pickens, the senior, as well as the senior corner Jacoby Francis. I like this Memphis team a lot. I think they have talent all across the board. There's a few positions that have a little bit of inexperience, but this is a team that went 8-3 a season ago and returns 8 starters on both sides of the ball. I think this team's going to be right in the thick of the American Conference Championship.
Yeah, I think so too. And experience plays a big factor, and returning all of those guys, is huge. For Ryan Silverfield. So this is one that I think is one of the sleeper teams in the American.
It sure is. I like their schedule a lot. I mean, they have Arkansas State on the road in week 2. That's not a pushover team, Parker. We're going to do the Sun Belt here in a week or two. But Arkansas State's a very talented team. Them and Louisiana Lafayette down there in the Sun Belt. No pushover teams whatsoever. And then Mississippi State at home the next week. 2 tough games back-to-back that'll really see how serious this Memphis team is about competing. They get a little bit of an easier start to their schedule, taking on Temple, Tulsa, and Navy, but then they got to play at UCF, home against SMU, and at Houston in a 4-game stretch. They're going to find out in that second half of the conference schedule if they're actually championship contenders or if they're just pretenders.
Right, and this is one that one of the easier schedules early on, but it gets tougher as you get further into the year. UCF, Houston, and SMU are all tough teams. They start out the year with Nichols, and then they get to host Mississippi State at home. So really tough. That's a really tough game is Mississippi State. So if they can play well against that team, it's possible that we Memphis may surprise some people.
Yeah, and Memphis is coming off of a convincing win in the Montgomery Bowl last year, so I'm excited to see this team keep going. But I tend to think, and we'll do our conference predictions at the end of who we think will end up where. But I think I'm going to put Memphis a little higher than Phil Steele did. East Carolina coming up next. Holton Allers, their starting quarterback, 6'3". They have a true freshman running back in Rajai Harris, but he has a lot of hype surrounding him. It's a very young offense. They have a true freshman at tight end, a true freshman at wide receiver, and a true freshman at running back. Very inexperienced offense, a defense that's not bad, but just a lot of questions right now surrounding the East Carolina Pirates, and I think that's what keeps them, a tier or two below some of the top teams.
Right. In 2018 they had Gardner Minshew transfer to Washington State, so they had lost him, but they're still a really talented team. I think this is going to be one of the one of the basement teams in this conference. I do. They're not going to have it easy. So Mike Houston has a really tough task here coming up this year, but they look promising.
They do. And something to, keep your head up high for if you're an East Carolina fan, 10 returning starters on offense and defense. So this is a team that went 3-6 a season ago. But it's a team that's returning the same team from last year pretty much. So it's a team that's going to grow. It's a team that's going to get better. But like you said, Parker, I think that it's just it's a team that struggles to find an identity. And I don't think that's going to help in a conference that's extremely competitive, where they're going to have to go up against Houston on the road, Cincinnati at home, Memphis on the road, UCF on the road, Navy on the road. That's a tough conference schedule. And they also got to play Marshall, South Carolina, and App State in the non-con. I just don't see a lot of games that they clearly have a shot in. So I like the direction of this East Carolina team. I think they are improving, but this is just a really tough schedule. And I just don't know if there's how many winnable games there are here for the Pirates.
Right. And App State's, always tough. And then they host South Carolina at home. And then a few of the tougher games on the schedule, go to, Central Florida, you host Cincinnati, go to Navy, go to Houston. So this is, a really tough schedule here for the Pirates.
Let's move on to the Tulane Green Wave. This is one of my favorite names in college football, Parker. The Tulane Green Wave just rolls off the tongue. But they bring in Michael Pratt, brand new true freshman, going to start this year for the Green Wave, 6'2", 200 pounds. They like him a lot. We'll see what he is able to do in his freshman season. But he threw for 1,800 yards. I should say he's a redshirt freshman. He threw for 1,800 yards in limited time last year. And he goes into from being a true freshman that wasn't supposed to play last year to a guy that has a little bit of experience, and he's definitely the guy heading into the year. So I'm excited to see what Michael Pratt's capable of. The redshirt freshman, Tyjae Spears at running back, really talented player, very shifty running back line. Reminds me a lot of LaShawn McCoy kind of build. Jaquan Jackson, Deuce Watts, two really good wide receivers with really cool names. And then this team just really inexperienced on the front seven. They have a couple freshmen, Eric Hicks and Angelo Anderson. But it's a talented senior linebacker core in Kevin Henry, Marvin Moody, and Ajani Kerr. So it's a team that has a lot of strengths. It's a team that has some weaknesses, but they went 6-6 last year under Willie Fritz. I think they finish about the same this year, probably about 500, and I'm sure their goal is to get to a bowl game.
Yeah, and Willie Fritz, in 6 years at Tulane has led the Green Wave to 3 straight bowls. So they haven't been horrible. They've made bowl games. So I'm excited to see what this team does. They have one of the tougher schedules. They open up the year hosting the Sooners, of Oklahoma. So and then you go further down into the schedule. You host Cincinnati, and then host the USF. South Florida. So this is one that is really tough for the Green Wave, but I have confidence in Coach Fritz that they're going to be a solid team.
Absolutely. You mentioned Oklahoma at Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, Houston at home, SMU on the road, Cincinnati at home, UCF on the road, Memphis on the road. It's a lot of tough games, but I think this team finds a way to win 6 of them, Parker.
Yeah, I do too. I highly doubt they will beat the Sooners, but it's college football, so you never know. So, and that's what's fun about it. So, this is, one of the tougher schedules, but I think they squeak out 6 here, like you said.
I agree. Let's move on to the Navy midshipmen. The Navy, obviously Navy, very, very unique in how they play football, that triple option scheme. It'll be led by Xavier Arline this year, the sophomore, 5'9", 165, very small, undersized quarterback, but he is very fast and very athletic. We'll see the fullback Isaac Rux, as well as other running backs Chance Warren and Carlinos Ossie. So this Navy team, obviously, they always have really talented linemen. They're a stingy team that plays hard and under oh, good Lord. I'm not going to pronounce his name right, but Ken Nui Matalolo. I think that's right. Nui Matalolo. But obviously 14 years at Navy, 3-7 a year ago, not the year that they were hoping to have, but before last year, had an 11-2 campaign. And it's a tough schedule. They go up against Marshall, Air Force, as well as Notre Dame and Cincinnati and UCF. So it's a tough schedule. But I think Navy, even though I don't think they'll compete for the championship in the American, I definitely think they'll be better than the 3-7 they went last year.
Yeah, I did too. And they'll have Coach Nui Matalolo, I think is how you pronounce his name. I think you got that right, Shay. But this is a team that has a lot of expectations. The Army Navy game is one that everyone looks forward to every single year. And Army's been the better team in the last couple of years. So we'll see if Navy can kind of shape it up a little bit. And their schedule looks pretty promising for Navy. They open up the year with Marshall, and then they have a really tough game on November 6th. They go to South Bend, take on the Fighting Irish. So this Navy team is one that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, me too. And I think Navy is always an interesting case, Parker, because I feel like they're one of those teams that constantly outperforms expectations just because they play such a unique style of football that's hard to game plan for. I mean, you can, play defense against the triple option all you want in practice, but until you see Navy run it on the field, they run it nearly flawlessly because of how much they prep for it. It's very, very difficult to train your linebackers and your defensive linemen and your defensive backs not to bite on that triple option offense because, 3-4 times a game, Navy does pass the football. And if your defensive backs collapse down too fast, it could lead to huge plays that win Navy games.
Yeah, it could. And the defensive issues and penalties, turnovers, whatever it may be, are really killer in college football because teams take advantage of that so fast. So, you really got to, watch your mistakes, try to keep the mistakes to a minimum and, see what they can do.
We got two more teams to talk about here today, Parker. The USF Bulls will be in their second season under Jeff Scott. They went 1-8 a season ago, not the year they were hoping for, but they do return 9 starters on both sides of the ball. They take on NC State and Florida to start the year, so a very tough start to the schedule. They also take on BYU, so their non-con is very tough, and then they also have to play Houston, UCF, and SMU. They have sophomore quarterback Cade Fairlin at quarterback, 6'3", 222 pounds. Kenley Joyner, one of their better players at running back. And then Xavier Warner, their top receiver, 6'1", 170. Good size, good speed. He's expected to take a big role in the offense this season. A guy I'm really excited to see, Parker, on this team. Two guys, I should say. It's the two nose tackles, both seniors, Blake Green and Thad Mangum. Both really talented big guys that slow down the other team's running game. If they can be big this year, it could help USF's defense improve dramatically. And then they have a big guy coming off the edge rusher, Jamari Stewart, true freshman, but he's 6'4" and 240 pounds. They like this kid a lot. So that defensive line for USF could, propel them in the right direction moving forward.
Yeah, it could. And defensive line play is really important because if you can get to the quarterback and make his life miserable for an entire game, it really does volumes for your momentum. So if these two guys can play well and this defense as a whole can play well, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Jeff Scott's team does. Jeff Scott's a Dabo Sweeney alum. I know was his offensive coordinator at Clemson. So and they have they don't have an easy schedule. They go and play NC State, in North Carolina, to open up the year, Florida, as well as, they go to Utah and face, BYU. So really tough start to this schedule for USF.
I'm curious how they managed to swing Florida to come to South Florida and not. I'm confused why they don't have to go to Gainesville. I'm surprised that Florida agreed to that.
I am too. That's an interesting one. Maybe I think if they were further away, it would be, another. We'd be having a different conversation. But USF going to a big Power Five school in the Florida Gators, that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it sure is. And let's talk about the final team in this conference that we're going to talk about today, the Temple Owls. Temple went 1-6 a season ago. They returned 8 starters on offense, 6 on defense. They will feature redshirt freshman quarterback DeWin Mathis and Iverson Clement, the very talented, very big bruiser of a running back. He's going to see a lot of action for this Temple offense. What I'm excited to see, Parker, is they have a really talented middle linebacker in Kobe Wilson. He's a true freshman. He's going to be calling the plays right off the bat. But this Temple defense struggled a season ago, and they think this is the guy that's going to turn it around. He's got a big opportunity in front of him, calling plays and being the leader of that defense as a 19-year-old freshman. But I think he's up for the challenge. He was one of the top linebacker recruits on the East Coast. And I really think he could be step one in turning this Temple defense around.
Yeah, it's possible. He comes in, and it really does, really big things, as a coach looks at you. If a guy comes in and wants to step into that leadership role right off the bat, call the plays on, for a Temple team that, has had its struggles. But if you come in and play well as leader of that defense, you're going to get lots of looks, not only from, other schools, but, the NFL. So this is, a team that I'm looking forward to having. They had struggled last year, but I think they'll be back and they'll play good football this season.
I think they'll definitely take a step in the right direction. They have one of the easier non-conference schedules that we talked about today, Parker. Their toughest game being at Rutgers and home against Boston College, but they do have to still travel to UC and Tulsa, and then they also host UCF. So their conference schedule, like everyone else, tough because this is a tough conference, but their non-conference is a little lighter than some of these other teams. So maybe Temple gets off to a strong start and turn some heads before conference play.
Yeah, and Rutgers, going to Rutgers, is not easy. And then you go to Akron and play the Zips, which is another team name that I love.
Top tier.
And then to end the year you have UCF at home. You travel to East Carolina, and then end the year hosting Navy. So this is one that one of the easier schedules in this conference, but it's certainly not going to be easy for the Owls.
Yeah, no, it is not. So now I want to end this, Parker. We're coming close to the end here of our first ever conference preview. This has been a ton of fun. We hope you're enjoying it as much as we are. But like I said earlier, I don't want to rip off Phil Steele because I feel like he has a right to his own opinion, and I feel like our opinions are going to differ in certain ways. But let's kind of try and predict. We don't have to do all 11 teams, but just kind of how we think the conference is going to shake up. I will say, like I said earlier, I think he nailed it with UC number 1 and UCF number 2. I don't have any argument on that.
No, I don't either. Both these guys. Luke Fickell, and Ritter, and then Gabriel at UCF. Both these guys have really good talent, and like you said earlier, it's going to come down to who plays better at the quarterback position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now for 3 through 5, Parker, I change it up a little bit from what Phil Steele has here. So I'm going to move Memphis up to 3. I like Memphis a lot. They return a lot of starters. They won 8 games a year ago. I think they're the biggest threat to the top 2. So I'm going to put Memphis 3, Houston 4, and SMU 5. I just think Memphis offers more at this moment than Tulsa does, and I think they offer more than Houston and SMU do. Houston has inconsistency on offense. SMU has inconsistency on defense. I think Memphis is stronger on both sides of the ball. I think they're number 3 in my eyes.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I still like Houston here at number 3. I'm a big believer in what Dana Holgerson's doing at Houston. I'm going to put them 3. Memphis is going to be 4 for me, and then 5 will be SMU. Memphis looks really good, but I don't have enough confidence in them and haven't seen enough from them to put them in that top 3.
Some teams I have in this next tier, I'm going to say I like Tulsa coming up in at 6. I'll have Tulane at 7, and I'm going to go with Navy at 8. And then I think the bottom 3 are still a few years away with USF, East Carolina, and Temple.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in what Navy's doing. I'm going to put them at 6. I am.
Okay.
They look really good for me. Tulane's going to be 7, and then the bottom 3, East Carolina, USF, and Temple.
All right. Well, that we hope you enjoyed. That was the first college football conference preview of the summer, and we got it knocked out in about 45 minutes. So we have 10 minutes to just talk about whatever we want, Parker.
This is not going to be good.
No, it is not.
We don't know what we're going to talk about, so it's not going to be good.
No, it is not. No. But no, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that a lot. I knew I'd enjoy doing college football previews throughout the course of the summer, but it's cool to not just talk about Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Penn State, the big boys. It's cool to take a step back and look at a conference like the American that when you dive into it, you realize that not only is it a very competitive conference, but it's got a lot of really talented future NFL football players.
Yeah, they do, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're doing. And this college football stuff, I know it's been a lot of fun so far, and I can't wait to kind of continue it. Get to look at some more of these non-power fives. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. So again, if you missed the show yesterday, Friday will be our next day of college football. We're doing it 3 days a week. Normally it'll be Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I know we didn't do a show on Monday this week, so this week's a little weird with Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. But Friday, I'm excited for it, Parker, because Friday's our Power 5 conference day, and we're going to be doing the Pac-12. So USC with Caden Slovis. Utah brings a very, very top-tier defense to the table. Oregon, Washington, Arizona State, Herm Edwards. I mean, the Pac-12 is just like the American. There's a lot of teams that could end up in a dogfight.
Yeah, and in this conference, the Pac-12 could go really, 4 or 5 ways, and that's really one that we're really excited for. This is one that you're just not seeing the same Clemsons, the same Bamas, the same Ohio States. This is one that is really up in the air for this entire conference.
Absolutely, it sure is, and good news for all of you that are fans of the show, and good news for you, Parker, because I forgot to tell you that today, but. We're going to be doing coming up soon. I don't know if it'll be this week or next week or whatever, but coming up soon, we're going to be doing a tier list of top ice cream flavors. And we're going to be joined by our good friends, Patrick Schmalstick and Morgan Mulcahy.
Oh, awesome.
Do that tier list.
I'm excited for that.
Yep. I told them I'd send them the link to the room and they're going to join. So there
we go.
Looking
forward to it. Get some new faces, on here rather than just, us.
I'm just worried that the people that listen to our show are going to like Morgan and Pat better than us.
Yeah, it's possible. We like Morgan and Pat better than we like ourselves.
That's
so
fair.
It's
I definitely like Morgan and Pat more than I like me.
Right. So we're worried that you'll come at us on Twitter and say, bring those guys back. You guys aren't, they're more fun than you, but which is valid. But I'm excited for that.
About to have to change the show name to Mulcahy and Schmalstick. Keep it real.
Featuring, the occasional visit from Shea Neal and Parker Testa. I like that.
Nah, they won't invite us back.
No, they won't.
No. But now we have about 8 minutes to go here in hour number 1. We appreciate you hanging out with us here on WWSU 106.9 FM. While we're waiting to, stall time here at the end of the first hour, because I don't want to get into MLB or NBA yet, because we got to fill hour number 2 as well. Let's talk a little bit more about orientation coming up tomorrow. Actually, it'll be in the Student Union Atrium. For those of you that are on campus, you'll already see that the tables are already set up out there. But I'm very excited because this is a big opportunity, not just for new students to get involved and meet new people and make friends. This is a big opportunity for our organization and for all the other organizations on campus to meet, the future of Wright State, to meet the future of our orgs. I mean, I'm a senior. I'm not going to be here forever. So I'm excited to meet the freshmen that are inevitably going to take over for me when I'm gone. So it's cool in that regard too, where I feel like not only are we meeting new students and, interested people, we're also meeting the future of some of the biggest orgs on campus.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And to see, all the new faces, on campus coming back. And it seemed like the entirety of last year, campus was a ghost town. In the last orientation event I was at, last month, that's the most people I've seen on campus in a long time. And it's exciting to, get all these people back. and all these people that are excited about what we're doing, because it's exciting. It is. So I'm really excited to see, meet some new people and meet the, like you said, the future leaders of all, the orgs on campus.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm really, really excited to. It's been a lot of fun, and I've said it's been a tough, um, it's been a tough time, obviously since it started, but I think that this is me coming from me, a naturally introverted person. I work hard. I work all day interacting with people and being social, and then I come home and just want to sleep and watch TV because I'm not a social butterfly. I work with a bunch of people that are definitely social butterflies, like our music director Bella, or the editor in chief of The Guardian Mackenzie. There's a lot of really social people that I interact with that thrive in that environment. I'm not one of those people, but I will say that having these orientation events, even for me, a guy that does not like to interact with people, especially people that I don't know, it's been an absolute blast.
Yeah, it has. And people coming up and saying hi. Like we said a couple weeks ago, President Edwards came up to our table and said that she's excited about the stuff that we're doing. It's really exciting, to see people excited about not only what we're doing but to, see all these people excited to have normal back, whatever normal is now. People ever are really excited to have normal back, and as am I. Like you said, I consider myself a somewhat social person, but to meet some new people and get some new people in the office, it's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure is. And it's been really fun. And this is probably the 80th time we've said this, but it's been really fun because this org um, was kind of stuck at a standstill for a long time. And we decided to do something very bold, and we decided to do something very different and to change almost everything up and to go in a completely different direction and try to modernize WWSU. And we weren't sure for a while if people were going to like it, if it was going to work. And the fact that the staff on campus are excited about what we're building, the fact that our alumni are excited about what we're building. We've had already, a half dozen alumni come and visit us in the middle of summer, and we have another one coming next week. And it's just fun to get to hear from them. We've had a couple alumni record us liners. We've had a couple alumni come in for tours of the station. It's been just a lot of fun interacting with them. And then to see the new students also just be more excited about WWSU than in years past. I'm somebody that's been here for 3.5 years, and I haven't seen this much buzz surrounding us in my time here. And it's really, really cool to see that the work that we've put in is being seen and is being recognized. And, we're trending up. And it probably sounds, arrogant to say that we're the fastest growing org on campus right now, but I really think it's true.
I think so too. And to see all the, every single time a tour comes by the office, people are always looking at, kind of what's going on in there. That's cool. What's going on in there? So, even during our meeting earlier today, I was sitting here and, I could see the window and people walking by, looking in, watching our meeting. So I'm excited for, not only, the new people on campus, but for the entirety of the staff. We're having so much fun. I know we've said this millions of times, but we're having so much fun, and we just want you to come have fun with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I couldn't have asked for much more from the staff, and I think that it's been a blast because I said this semi jokingly about an hour ago, but I mean it, that it's so nice to have everyone on the staff be funny, because I don't have to worry about having. I feel like we have the perfect balance where I don't have to worry about people that are too laid back and don't take their job seriously and don't perform at a high level, which we have had that issue in the past. And I don't have to worry about people that take their job almost too seriously and don't have any room to, kind of sit back and have fun sometimes. We have a great group of people that know how to have fun, that know how to put out really good work. And it's just been an absolute blast. I enjoy going into work from 9 to 5 every day because I enjoy what I do and I enjoy the people that I do it with.
Yeah, and like you said, being with people that, make working fun, makes the environment, a lot better. And it's really exciting to see, everybody who's really excited about what we're doing. And that's, I heard a quote on, on TV the other day, and I think it sums us up perfectly. It said, try to do what you love with people that you love. And that's the definition of heaven on earth. And I think that's what that's what we've established, and it's really cool to see that. And, people that love, being around, being at the office, hanging out, and not only just working all day, but we know how to have fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that, I've kind of taken away something similar back from when I played baseball and back when I was, doing stuff like that, where I think one of the reasons why I've said, we've said since day one, org of the year, org of the year, org of the year. That's that's our goal. That's org of the year or bust. And we're the only org, I promise you, in the history of Wright State that's going to go on a victory cruise when we win. But, going back to when I play baseball and now with what we're doing now, I think the reason why I think we are favorites even at this point to win org of the year is because I feel like we have a different culture, we have a different foundation than a lot of these other orgs on campus. A lot of these orgs on campus have really talented people that work really hard and put out really good work, but from what I've seen from other core nines and from other orgs on campus, I don't think anyone's embraced that family style mentality that we have, where I think it's exactly what you said. It's, doing what you love with the people that you love to do it with. And, if it's people that, if it's like that family kind of bond and, we're putting out good work and we're enjoying each other's company while we do it. I mean, that kind of bond, that kind of relationship's unbeatable.
It is. And it's, it's really fun. I know I've said this like 47 times in the last 2 minutes, but
We're stalling.
is. Yeah, right. And we're just having a blast, and everybody around is having a blast. I know that people from other orgs have reached out to us, just trying to get involved with us and try to collaborate on things, which is really cool to see. We've been talking with people like SGA and esports and UAB. So they're really cool to see all of us working together and just having a blast while we do it.
Right, and I mean, for those of you that aren't familiar with Wright State, SGA is the home of the student body president. Esports is the reigning org of the year. UAB is the biggest organization on campus. The fact that these groups are reaching out to us tells you that we're doing something right, and it tells you that people are excited about the direction that we're going. And I mean, I think that's the coolest part of all of it. I mean, I was confident that I thought we were doing good stuff, but it definitely feels different, and it definitely is a great feeling when other people think you're doing something good as well.
Right, and people telling you that you're doing really cool stuff is there's no better feeling. I know we talked a little bit about this yesterday. I had somebody that I've known for a while, and they told me that I'm really doing cool things, and that it makes you feel good when people recognize what you're doing, and it makes you feel like you're doing something right.
Absolutely. And I mean, I mentioned this happened last night after we were done recording at like 2:00 in the morning, but somebody I haven't talked to since high school, and I barely talked to in high school, maybe like 5 or 6 times over the course of 4 years of high school, slid up on a Snapchat story and said, "Hey, I know we haven't talked since high school, but just kind of watching your progression in this field has been one of the coolest things ever. Keep it up. You're going places." And I mean, something like that. I mean, it's someone I haven't talked to in 6 years, but that makes you just feel like you're on top of the world at that moment. You're on cloud 9, and it makes you feel like for a few split seconds that you're untouchable.
Yeah, it does. And people reaching out to you. Like, I've had former high school teachers and coaches reach out to me saying, "Hey, I watch your daily show. You're doing really cool things. And that's awesome. It makes me feel good to have some people from my life reach out to me that maybe I haven't talked to in a while, and say they watch the show. It's really cool, and they follow along with what you're doing, and there's no better feeling, like I said, and it goes a long way. If any of those people are out there listening, whether it's people that are related to you or me or anybody on our staff, it makes us feel, on top of the world when you say things like that, and we really appreciate it, really.
Absolutely, we do.
Absolutely.
And congratulations, Parker. We have officially stalled for 10 minutes, and we are now at the hour mark. But come see us tomorrow at the Student Union Atrium. We'll be there from about 10:30 to about 1:30. Come say hi. Find the WWSU booth. We'll give you a T-shirt. We'll give you a hot card. We'll tell you how you can get involved and be a part of, the up and coming org on campus. And we'd love to meet you. We'd love to talk with you, and we'd love to see you help us grow what we think has the potential to be the biggest org on campus.
Yeah, and we're over the moon excited. We're doing lots of things. Just in the a few short months that we've gotten started on this, and to see all the stuff that we've done so far. And like we said a few weeks ago, this is just the beginning, and we're really excited to continue to do what we do. And it's we're still a little over a month away from everybody coming back to campus, but we're already preparing for that, and and we're getting things in place to welcome everyone back to campus, and to welcome you to WWSU.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. But yeah, we're gonna step away for a few minutes now that hour number 1 is in the books. When we come back, we're back to sports. We have MLB All Star weekend coming up. We're gonna talk about the guys that are in the home run derby. We're gonna talk about the guys that were named to the All Star reserves and the pitching staffs. I'm excited to get into that, as well as NBA Finals Game 1. It's in the books. We have a team that's up 1-0 in the NBA Finals. We're going to break down who won, who looked good, and what needs to happen in Game 2 for both teams. So more action coming up. Don't go anywhere. Hour number 2 of Keep It Real is coming up next on WWSU 106.9 and our YouTube channel. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few. Hour number 2 of Keep It Real with Testa and Neal. How are all of you? Happy Wednesday to all of you. I'm Shea Neal, alongside with me, Parker Testa. Hour number 1 was a blast. We did the American Conference preview, and we got done about 10 minutes earlier than we anticipated, so we also talked about how you can find us at orientation tomorrow. But we're back to sports, regularly scheduled program here in hour number 2. Parker, I know we originally said we were going to talk baseball first, but I'll leave it up to you. Do you want to keep going the baseball route, or do you want to get into the finals?
Let's get to the finals.
All right. The Phoenix Suns win game 1 over the Milwaukee Bucks. I think both of us kind of had a feeling the Suns would win game 1 tonight, but they do get it done. Final score in this one. As I got to pull it up. I'm sorry about that. I should have, been more prepared. But the Phoenix Suns do win game 1 of the NBA Finals, get the lead in the series at home. I think they had to win the games in Phoenix, and they pull that off. They win again, 118-105 in game 1 of the NBA Finals. It was a nice night, and it really got off to an interesting start because, Parker, something happened that we weren't really ready for. Giannis Antetokounmpo got cleared to play today.
Yeah, he did. It was surprising, and we both thought he wouldn't play, especially in game 1 and also in game 2. But, he comes out and he played well. He had 20 points and 35 minutes played to add on 17 rebounds. But it wasn't enough for the Bucks tonight. Chris Paul played well like we all thought he would. 32 points, 9 assists, 4 rebounds for CP3. As well as Booker and Ayton. Those big three played really well tonight.
They did. Giannis in his first game back ends up with 20 points, 17 rebounds, 4 assists. He only took 11 shots, but 20 points, maybe a little less than normal for Giannis Antetokounmpo. But if you're telling me his first game after a hyperextended knee and missing 4 games was 20 points, 17 rebounds, and 54% from the field, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is, and we thought they played well, and both these teams did. This was a much closer game than the score tells us. It was. We thought Giannis would the injury would kind of affect his play a little bit, but it didn't seem like it did. He played well. He's running around before the game, like you said, and decided to play. So. It was a really good game for the Suns, but Giannis played well. Had a heck of a chase down block. Giannis did tonight, but in the end, it wasn't enough for Milwaukee.
No, it was not, and but you're absolutely right. Flashes of LeBron in 2016 tonight. It even started the same way, where Giannis kind of started from the same side of the court, and It wasn't tied in game 7 of the finals, but nonetheless, it was an unbelievable play by Giannis Antetokounmpo, who of course has won Defensive Player of the Year. So he's known as a really good defender. But I think something that I learned about Giannis, especially in these playoffs, a lot of people have been guilty, myself included, of just saying that he's only good because of his body size, he's only good because of his frame, he's only good because of his athleticism, and he didn't have a lot of skill. But he's not the most skilled guy in the NBA. That belongs to guys like Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, and Luka Doncic, and LeBron James. But where he is now compared to where he was 2 or 3 years ago, you can tell how much work Giannis has put into his game. He's a top 5 player in the world right now. He's really, really good.
Yeah, he is. And to come back from a hyper extended knee that he had, which was real ugly, it was.
It looked a lot worse than a hyper extended knee.
Right, and to come back and play well, like as well as he did, and then come back as soon as he did, it was really surprising, and he played well.
He did. He sure did. Other players on the Bucks tonight, PJ Tucker had 7 points, but he's obviously not really a scorer. Brook Lopez, 17 points. Chris Middleton had 29. He led the Bucks in scoring tonight. Drew Holiday struggled, only 4 of 14 from the field. He had 10 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. And then off the bench, Pat Connaughton had 8, and Bryn Forbes had 6. The issue for the Bucks, they shot 45%. They did well from 3, hit 16 threes, but only 9 of 16 at the free throw line. If the Bucks want to win this series, the Suns are the toughest team they've gone up against so far in the playoffs, except for maybe the Brooklyn Nets. They got to make more than 56% of their free throws. And I know that's kind of Vietnam flashbacks for us because that's the same exact thing we said about the Wright State Raiders.
Yeah, it is. This one was, it's tough. You got to make the free throws if you want to win. We and the Bucks, struggled with that tonight. They did. So, um, you got to work that out, and I'm sure they will, and they'll come back and play well. I think in game two. But this one is still in Phoenix, and still I have to give the edge to the Phoenix Suns here in game two.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Suns. We talked about it a little bit. I said in my just kind of how I analyze this matchup. I think the Bucks are the more talented team, but I think the Suns are the better team, if that makes sense. I think the Bucks have more talent on their roster. I think the Bucks have more star players. I think the Bucks have, probably if you look at both teams' rosters, you'd probably say the Bucks are better. Um, but I think the Suns work together better. I think the Suns play together better. I think the Suns have more of that gel, have more of that chemistry, and I think that's what makes them the better basketball team.
Yeah, and they've beat. I think and that's not to discount anything in the Eastern Conference, but I think they've beaten better teams. They played Denver, they played the Lakers. They was a really close series with the Clippers as well. So the Suns have been battle tested, and I think they had the momentum going into this series, and they proved that tonight.
Yeah, they sure did. Um, we talked about Chris Paul. He led the way for the Suns with 32 points, as well as 9 assists and 4 rebounds. Only 2 turnovers tonight, and shot 63% from the floor. So just Chris Paul continues to have a postseason for the books. And I don't really have a dog in this fight, Parker. I don't really mind who wins. I'd love to see Chris Paul get a ring, but I'd also love to see Giannis get a ring. So I just want to see good basketball. We saw it tonight. But it would be quite the storyline for Chris Paul to get his first ring after 16 seasons in the NBA. And the way he's playing right now, he might win finals MVP too.
Yeah, and he proved that he was the best player in this game tonight. He had the most led in scoring for both teams, and gave the Suns what they needed. And a big game one win was what they needed for their momentum. I think they had it anyway, but this just adds to it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And these two teams are so good and so evenly matched that it's going to be really important for Phoenix to win all their home games. And they got off to a strong start tonight. Devin Booker ends up with 27 points, a little bit not his best game from the field, 8 of 21 shooting, but he did go 10 of 10 at the line. He also had 6 assists and 3 steals. DeAndre Ayton continues to have a postseason for the books, Parker. 22 points, 19 rebounds on 80% shooting. I talked about this a couple days ago. DeAndre Ayton by no means was a bust, but he had been kind of, met for a number 1 overall pick heading into this season and really even into the playoffs. The way he's playing right now, he looks like a top 5 center in the NBA.
He does, and like you said, didn't look like this all year long. But closer to the end of the year, he's turned it on a bit, and especially in these playoffs, he's been unbelievable. He put up 22 tonight with 19 rebounds. I mean, he's held the inside of held the post down for the Suns, who that have had some troubles inside over the last couple of years. But Ayton's come in and he's secured that, and he's looking like you said one of the league's best right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not an NBA GM and I'm not an NBA scout for good reason, but I do believe that a measure of a player's ability lies in clutch and how you play in big moments. I think that is, you can't measure clutch, but you can evaluate clutch. You can see who steps up in the biggest moments. You can see who fades out in the biggest moments. Guys like Damian Lillard, guys like Luka Doncic, guys like Kevin Durant. Those guys are fearless. And when the lights are brightest and when everything's on the line, Kevin Durant 100 times out of 100 would rather miss the shot and be looked at as the guy who blew it than not get the shot. And that's the definition of a stone cold killer. And what I see right now in DeAndre Ayton, he's not going to shoot a 3 for the win, but he's playing his best basketball at the most important time. He looks like the next, clutch big man in the NBA.
He does. And Kevin Durant's not called the easy money sniper for nothing.
The Slim Reaper.
Right. And he's played fantastic basketball, and Ayton's right up there with him. He's played really well. Not only in these playoffs, but not only throughout the entire season, but these playoffs have been fantastic for Aiden.
Well, it's just that alpha. It's just that alpha mentality. I feel like where even if you're not an athlete, like if you're like personally for me as well, if I have an idea or I have a certain project that I'm working on, I'd rather it be horribly wrong and a failure, but know that it was the way I wanted to do it, than to have it be altered and never know. Like I feel like I'm the kind of person that just I'd rather learn from my failures than ride somebody else's success. And guys like Kevin Durant, guys like Damian Lillard, guys like Luka Doncic, those are absolute alpha dogs. And I guarantee you, for Luka's 21 years old, for the rest of his 20-year Hall of Fame NBA career, if Dallas is ever down by 2 or 3 points and they need a shot to tie or win the game, Luka's never, ever, ever going to say no to that shot.
No, he's, him, Ayton, Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, LeBron, Steph Curry, and you could go down the list of guys who have that, clutch mentality. They turn into, like you said, stone cold killers in those moments. And they, like you said a few weeks back, it's very similar to, a pitcher throwing a no-hitter. Don't talk to him. Don't look at him. Don't entertain anything. Don't even think about him, because he doesn't want anything to do with you. He's in the zone, and you're not gonna phase him. And don't break his rhythm, because if you're the one that causes that, you are not going to be liked by your locker room. So just leave the guy alone, let him do his thing, and more times than not, it goes their way.
Well, I've always thought it's interesting that different, pitchers react differently. There's some pitchers that just put a coat over their head and don't want anyone within 10 feet of them. But there's some pitchers that are cracking jokes and walking around the dugout because they think that, it'll mess with them if they're just on their own. So, but it goes to NFL too. I mean, or, just any sport in general, really. But how many times have we seen over the last decade or two the Patriots or the Buccaneers down by 3, down by 4, down by 7 with 2 minutes to go? That look Tom Brady has every time they put the sideline cam on. He's just sitting on that bench, looking down, just staring. And Tom Brady's just got that stone cold killer mentality. Like I said, anytime, and I hate that I know this because I don't want Tom Brady to win, but anytime the Buccaneers or the Patriots, whatever it was, whenever he was playing wherever, if I knew they were within 7 points, I knew Brady, and there was 2 minutes left, I knew Brady was going to find a way.
Yeah, and that's what that's what he's done throughout his entire career. And the biggest one being the Super Bowl 51. That's the biggest one everybody knows. So I don't even have to say what the score is, because everybody knows what the score was. Every single person knows what the score was. So
I'm sure Atlanta fans remember.
I don't know, but I'll spare them that misery. So yeah, and lots of guys have that clutch mentality. Even place kickers, Adam Vinatieri has that. Justin Tucker has that. League's best kickers have that. And it goes the same way with NBA players, Lillard, Curry. You could go down the list of guys who have that mentality.
And a guy that I want to make sure that we touch on really quick before we, because I think he deserves to be in this conversation, and I think he's the next, coming of that stone cold killer, one of the more talented young stars in the league. 2 of them, I should say. Jason Tatum was the one that came to mind for me, but then another one, Donovan Mitchell, and what we saw this year in the playoffs, Trae Young. I mean, there's a lot of these alpha guys in the league now that, like I said with Luka Doncic in Dallas, the next 15 years of Hawks basketball, anytime the Hawks have a shot to go for the win, I guarantee you Trae Young's got the ball.
He does, and you'd be really dumb not to put him in put the ball in his hands. And you're in the huddle. Everybody knows where the ball is going. The defense knows where the ball is going. But these guys find a way to win. They know where the ball's going to be, but they still can't stop it, because that's how clutch these guys are.
Yeah. And that's what we saw, the perfect example of that a couple of years ago when the Blazers beat the Clippers in the playoffs. Damian Lillard hit a shot from near half court. Paul George was all up in his grill, and he drilled it anyway. And Paul George said, the famous quote, "That's a bad shot." and Damian Lillard waved him off the court. And it's like, Paul George couldn't have played any better defense, and that was a shot from almost half court. And it's just sometimes those guys just, have that they're unstoppable. Kevin Durant. I've seen Kevin Durant, half of the shots Kevin Durant hits to win games or tie games or whatever, there's really good defense being played on him, and it doesn't matter because it's Kevin Durant in the clutch.
Right, and you never bet against clutch Kevin Durant. You never bet against clutch Tom Brady. You never bet against any of these guys because you will lose your money. I promise you.
Yep, I completely agree. So, like we said, going back to DeAndre Ayton just has elevated his game to a new level in the biggest moments, and it's been impressive to watch. I knew he was my favorite player in that draft when he was taken number 1 overall. I thought he was deserving to be the number 1 overall pick, but he looks like the guy that I thought he'd be when he was drafted now. I mean, this is a guy, I don't think he's going to average 22 and 17 over the course of a season, but this is a guy that's going to average, 20 and 12 over the course of a year, as well as really good defense and really strong athleticism. And he probably could average 25 if he wanted to, but he doesn't have to do that because, he's teammates with Chris Paul and Devin Booker.
Yeah, and he has, he's, like you said, one of the, the next guys to have that clutch mentality. Chris Paul, I think, has it now. There's been moments where Booker has it, but Ayton's that next guy up.
No doubt about it. And then the Suns bench, again, stepping up. 10 from Cameron Johnson, 10 from Cameron Payne, as well as 14 from Mikal Bridges. I know he doesn't come off the bench, but he's a role player. Dario Saric left after landing a little awkwardly on his leg. Did not return. He only played about 2 minutes. So coming up in game 2, we might see a little bit more of Torrey Craig, and we might see a little bit of guys like Frank Kaminsky and Langston Galloway. So we'll see how much that Saric injury plays a role in the rest of the series.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. This Bucks team played well tonight. I know, especially from some of their bench guys, Payne, Johnson, played well. They did. So we'll, with Saric being injured, we'll see more of, like you said, Torrey Craig, Kaminsky. Guys need to step up and fill that role.
They do. So the Suns win game 1. Game 2 will be tomorrow night. In Phoenix, Suns go for a 2-0 lead. Giannis and the Bucks try to even up the series heading back to Milwaukee. Really quick, Parker, before we move on to the MLB, we're not going to do score predictions because obviously we'll do that tomorrow before the game starts. But what do the Suns have to do to make sure that they go up 2-0, and what do the Bucks have to do to even up this series?
The Suns just got to keep doing what they're doing. What they're doing is working. Play through Chris Paul. Chris Paul is your guy, and play through, like I said, play through Chris Paul. He's not going to let you down. I promise you. And and if the defense finds a way to shut down Chris Paul, you got Booker and Ayton right behind him. 2 really solid players that are going to give you good basketball. What the Bucks got to do is they got to find a way, to get Middleton going. Middleton and Giannis together. Even though Middleton had 29 tonight, we've seen more from Middleton. And especially their bench guys. PJ Tucker, struggled a bit tonight. But they also got to get guys like Brent Forbes and Bobby Portis going. Their bench play is really important for the both these teams. And the Suns have the better bench right now, so they Coach Budenholzer needs to get that bench going for the Bucks.
He does. I agree with you on the Suns. I think my biggest thing for the Suns, trust the guys that got you there. Trust Devin Booker. Trust Chris Paul. Trust DeAndre Ayton. Trust Mikal Bridges. Campaign off the bench. The way that they've played, the guys that they've played through, it's gotten them to the NBA Finals and has them 3 wins away from a championship. So you just got to keep trusting in those guys. There's no need to mess with the game plan when it's working. And for the Bucks, I think Giannis will be stronger in game 2. I think a lot of tonight was him kind of getting his feet underneath him again. But for the Bucks, is you need more production from Drew Holiday, and you need more production from that bench of Forbes, Connaughton, and Bobby Portis. I mean, if the Bucks bench, I don't think the Bucks bench is ever going to be able to keep up with Cam Payne and Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges. But if it can make that gap a little less noticeable, I think Giannis and Middleton can outperform guys like Paul and Booker.
I think so too. Like you said, if the bench can kind of play somewhat close to Phoenix's bench, the Suns have more, more firepower, I think, in these bigger moments with Giannis and with, uh, Brooke Lopez and Middleton. So they can outplay some of these guys if they need to. As long as you get your bench going, for Milwaukee, you got a shot.
No doubt about it. All right, Parker. So we move on here. We have about 25 minutes left or so here on today's show. We talked about the All Star starters last week a little bit on the show. We'll go over them again really quick just in case you missed it, but we're not going to spend a ton of time on it because I don't think we're going to have a ton of time to get through everything. But All Star game less than a week away. I am extremely excited about this game coming up. I don't know about you, Parker, but I think they did a really good job overall with the All Star teams this year. I don't think there were a lot of guys that got snubbed, and I think a lot of the guys that were deserving are there.
Yeah, I think so too. And guys like Vladdy Jr., Shohei Ohtani, um, Bogarts, Devers, Teoscar Hernandez, Judge, Trout. Go down the list of guys that were well deserving, and they didn't miss out on much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I accidentally opened a video, and that's not what I wanted to do. But me struggling with technology, I mean, that's just kind of the story of this show overall. But I think that what's impressive to me is that it's been a very, very impressive season for a lot of guys that we didn't expect really to be as good as they've been. Where we talk really quick about the starters here. For the American League, Salvador Perez, the catcher, he's been the best catcher in the AL all year. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. looking like an MVP. Marcus Semien, how good has he been in Toronto? Devers and Bogarts, that's not a huge surprise. Trout and Judge even, I don't think that's a big surprise. But how good has Teoscar Hernandez been? He gets the start. And then Shohei Ohtani at DH, but he's also going to pitch in the All Star game, becoming the first player ever to both pitch and hit in an All Star game.
Yeah, it's really cool to see this. It really is, and for a lot of these guys, it's their first time being part of the All Star team. Fernando Tatis has been it's his first All Star appearance. As crazy as that sounds, it's his first. Buster Posey, what a year he's had. He's revived his career, I think. So this year, Adam Frazier in Pittsburgh, he's the one bright spot that Pittsburgh has, and as well as Castellanos and Winker in Cincinnati, both guys have been really good. So, both these starting lineups look real scary right now.
They do. The National League, I'm glad you brought that up. Buster Posey at catcher, Freddie Freeman at first base, Adam Frazier at second, Nolan Arenado at third, Fernando Tatis Jr. at short, and then Acuna, Castellanos, and Winker in the outfield. So let's start talking about some of these reserves, Parker, because these are the guys that we still need to talk about. The backup catcher for the American League team is going to be Mike Zunino of the Tampa Bay Rays. He's always been kind of underwhelming with the hitting stats. This year, though, a little bit better. Only a 197 average, but a 284 on base percentage. He's drawn a lot of walks, and he has an 812 OPS because he has 18 home runs. So the average is not pretty, but he's hitting home runs, getting in an above average OPS for catchers, and he's already one of the best defensive catchers in the league. So I think Zunino earned this bid, and he'll be the backup catcher to Salvador Perez.
Yeah, Zunino, like you said, not the biggest, like the name you see on everything really, but he's really had quietly he has a strong year. Only batting 197, but he has 18 homers with 36 ribbies, so he's playing good baseball in Tampa Bay, and like you said, he'll be the backup here for for the American League.
Jose Altuve gets the spot as a reserve on the American League All Star team. Altuve, say what you want about the Astros, but Altuve's had one heck of a year, hitting 286, 372 on base percentage, an 873 OPS, 18 home runs, 49 RBIs. That sign stealing scandal, obviously a huge deal. But we've seen this year with guys like Gurriel and Correa and Altuve that these guys can play with or without cheating.
Right. And Jose Altuve is one of them. He's batting 284, 18 homers, 47 ribbies. So he's played well, and he has a WAR of 3.1, which is real good. So, when the Astros don't have Altuve, they tend to struggle a little bit. So, Altuve certainly deserves to be in this spot.
Speaking of the Astros, Carlos Correa gets another spot on this team. Correa hitting 295 on the year, almost a 400 on base percentage and a 915 OPS. Correa having the best year of his career right before he hits free agency. He's going to get a really nice contract at the end of the year and I don't know if it's going to be in Houston or if it's going to be somewhere else, but he's going to get a nice contract to be somebody's shortstop for a long time.
Yeah, he is. Correa has been one of the guys that, for Dusty Baker, who's been really consistent. And he's, like you said, had a heck of a year here. And he's, like you said, best year of his career, batting nearly 300 with 52 RBI. So he's played really, really well. And like you said, he will be paid this offseason.
He sure will. Let's get to the last middle infielder on this team, and it's Bo Bichette, the 23-year-old from the Toronto Blue Jays, gets a spot in his first All-Star game. Bo Bichette hitting 290 on the year, a 341 on base percentage, 820 OPS, 15 home runs, 54 RBIs, 12 stolen bases. It's the first of many All-Star game appearances for Bo Bichette, but he definitely has the numbers to back it up, and I'm glad he made the team.
Yeah, I'm glad too. And this Toronto team is a lot of fun. Teoscar Hernandez, George Springer, Vladdy Jr., and Bichette, and that's not to leave out Semien. So, this is a really fun team. It is, and Charlie Montoya's done a fantastic job leading this team. He has. So, Bichette batting 290 with 15 homers, a WAR of 3.3. So he's playing really good baseball for Charlie Montoya, and he deserves an All-Star spot.
A dark horse MVP candidate so far this year out in Oakland, Matt Olson, hitting 283, 20 home runs, 55 RBIs, and an OPS of 923. I think if Vladdy wasn't having the year he was having, almost every other year, Matt Olson would be starting with numbers like that. But unfortunately for him, Vladdy's had one of the best years in recent memory, and he'll have to settle with being a reserve.
Yeah, he deserves to be in the spot. He does, but Matt Olson, hasn't had the year that Vladdy's having, and it's really tough to have a year that Vladdy's having. It is. So, Olson's played well. He has 20 home runs, this season, and he seems to hit, a bunch of home runs every single year. So, good for Matt Olson. He deserves to be here, but, some would argue that he'd be, should be a starter, but you can't match Vladdy numbers.
No, you cannot. Let's knock out our last two infielders here on this reserve roster. Jose Ramirez with the Indians, 268 average and 885 OPS with 18 home runs. And Jared Walsh, what a story he's been. 39th round pick out of Georgia, but this year hitting 280 with an 890 OPS and 20 home runs. So Walsh and Ramirez both deserving to get to the game, and they wrap up the infielders for the AL reserves.
Yeah, they do. And Walsh has been really fun to watch. He has. The Angels, cut Albert Pujols to start Walsh at first base. So he deserves to be in the spot. He really does.
He does. Let's go through the outfield really quickly. Brantley, Gallo, and Adolis Garcia, 3 of the 4 outfielders on this list. Garcia, quite a year he's had as a rookie, an 850 OPS, a 276 average, 21 home runs. Obviously, we know what Gallo and Brantley are capable of, but how about Cedric Mullins? Mullins on the year hitting 317 and 938 OPS, 16 home runs, 15 stolen bases. This is a guy that came into the year with a 240 career batting average. He's taken that step forward. And I mean, if the Orioles were not one of the worst teams in the league, I think he'd be getting MVP votes.
He would. And he's played, surprisingly well. He's been really, really good for Brandon Hyde. Fantastic baseball from Cedric Mullins. 318, 15 homers, 32 ribbies. He's played a really good outfield for the Orioles as well. So He deserves to be in the spot also because he's arguably been one of the best outfielders in baseball this season.
Absolutely. And then the final two hitters on this team, Nelson Cruz and JD Martinez. Nelson Cruz hitting 305, 380 on base percentage, 945 OPS. Cruz just continues to rake, even though he's 41 years old. And then JD Martinez also hitting just a hair under 300 with a 900 OPS. So JD's gotten his swag back this year, and Nelson Cruz doing Nelson Cruz things. Both of those guys could be starters if Ohtani wasn't having the year he was having, but it's good to see that they made the team.
Yeah, it is. And JD, we've seen what JD has done throughout his entire career. Deserves to be in the spot as well. But how about Nelson Cruz? He's 41 years old and still, like you said, rakes the heck out of the baseball.
Yeah, he does. Let's get to the pitchers really quick, Parker. Shane Bieber, Garrett Cole, we kind of expected to be there, but some of these guys, big surprises. Nathan Eovaldi with the Boston Red Sox, 9-5, a 3.66 ERA, and 99 strikeouts. He's had quite the year, especially in his last 7 games. A 3.16 ERA with Sale's injury and Eduardo Rodriguez being inconsistent so far this year. Eovaldi's really stepped up, and he's been the best pitcher on the Red Sox.
Yeah, he has. We thought that Erod would be one of the better pitchers, starters on this Red Sox team, but Eovaldi's been fantastic, really good, as well as Yusei Kikuchi in Seattle. He makes this, the start list for the American League, and then of course, 2 guys from Chicago, Lynn and Rodon, both deserving to be in this spot as well.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up Rodon. Lynn has been, like we said, better than they could have even hoped for. 8-3, a 2.02 ERA. He's been outstanding. And then Carlos Rodon's revived his career this year, sitting with a 2.31 ERA in a 7-3 record, including a no-hitter earlier this year. 2 other guys that made this team starting pitchers. How about the years these guys are having? Kyle Gibson with the Rangers, 6-0, a 1.98 ERA, and then Yusei Kikuchi, who a lot of people wrote off after he had a tough couple years to start his big league career, but this year 6-3 with a 3.18. He's been really, really good out in Seattle.
Yeah, he has, and I'm loving him right now because he's on my fantasy team. But he's been one of the few bright spots and one of the few people that haven't gotten hurt. But Kikuchi's played fantastic baseball for Scott Service, so he deserves to be in this spot. And some of these relievers have been fantastic. Aroldis Chapman makes another All Star game, as he should. He's throwing like 184 miles an hour or whatever he's throwing now. As well as Matt Barnes in Boston.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's get to the relievers on the AL team. Matt Barnes with the Red Sox, Aroldis Chapman with the Yankees, Liam Hendricks with the White Sox, Ryan Presley with the Houston Astros, and Gregory Soto with the Tigers makes his first All-Star game. A 2.94 ERA for Soto this year in 36 games, along with 40 strikeouts. He's been the Tigers' best reliever, and he gets to go to the All-Star game for it. So that's the American League All-Star team. And it's I think that, like I said, overall, I think they did a pretty good job. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head that I feel like really got snubbed.
I can't either. Baseball did a really good job this year with picking their teams, and this is one of the best All-Star game rosters that we've seen in a while. Almost all these guys are playing really good baseball and deserve to be in this.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the National League. We still have about 20 minutes left in the show today. Reserves, the backup catcher, JT Realmuto. Realmuto's had a great year, an 802 OPS, 260 average, 8 home runs, a little bit less power numbers than we're used to from Realmuto. But he's still, I believe, the best catcher in baseball when it's all said and done. And even though Posey's had an unbelievable year and deserves to start, Realmuto deserves to go.
He does, and he's. I personally still think he's the best catcher in baseball overall. As good of a year as guys like Posey and Salvi Perez have had. Realmuto has been really good, and he deserves to be here.
Absolutely. Ozzie Albies at second base. He's 24 years old still, even though he made his debut 4 years ago. Albies on the year hitting 263. An 833 OPS. He has 13 stolen bases to go with 15 home runs, looking like he might have a 30-30 season here for the Atlanta Braves. He makes the All-Star team. And then the revival of Chris Bryant, Parker. Excuse me. almost made it to the end of the show without doing that. But the revival of Chris Bryant hitting 270 on the year, an OPS of 853, and that's even though he's been slumping over the last 15 games or so. Chris Bryant's had a heck of a year, and I'll be the first to admit, after the last couple years, I wasn't sure if we'd get back to MVP Chris Bryant. I wouldn't say it's MVP Chris Bryant, but this is the best Chris Bryant we've seen in a few years.
Yeah, and here's one thing that I've kind of said a little bit, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. If you had to pick one of the big three in Chicago to keep, who do you keep?
Ugh, that's tough because I think Bryant's the most talented of the three, but I feel like Rizzo's the glue that holds the Cubs together. So I feel like I'd say Rizzo, but it's really tough because I think Bryant's the best player.
Right. I think Rizzo's more consistent than Bryant also. I think we both agree send Javi Baez packing, but
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think Rizzo's, you got to keep Rizzo in town. But to get back to this, Chris Bryant's been really good, and he's played really, really well for David Ross in Chicago. But this next guy, how about Brandon Crawford? Brandon Crawford played really good baseball this year. He really has, revived his career. This year with the Giants and Gabe Kapler, and he's played really good baseball. For the Giants, and he's batting 264 with 52 RBIs, 17 homers. He's played really good baseball.
Absolutely, he's had quite the year with the San Francisco Giants. 272, like you said, almost a 900 OPS on the year. 4 straight NL West guys here to wrap up the majority of the infielders in the reserves. We talked about Crawford. How about Jake Cronenworth? What a year he's had. An 815 OPS, a 280 average, 12 home runs. Jake Cronenworth has been a great story with the San Diego Padres after just getting him as a throw-in in that trade with Tommy Pham in the Tampa Bay Rays. So the Padres did a great job in that deal getting Pham and Cronenworth. And then Eduardo Escobar makes the All-Star game. He's hitting 250 with a 766 OPS. He's the Diamondbacks representative in the All-Star game. And then Max Muncy with your LA Dodgers, Parker, hitting 260, a 965 OPS. Just the third straight year of Muncy being one of the better power hitters in the National League.
Yeah, and he's played well, and Dave Roberts has been trying him at a few different positions, but he's played mainly first base, and and he's hit the heck out of the baseball this year.
He sure has. Three players that I'm going to do here now that I think we expected to be here. Trey Turner at shortstop, hitting 317 and 881 OPS, just hit for the cycle a few days ago. He's been unbelievable this season. And Trey Turner, I think, is one of the top 4 or 5 shortstops in the league. And he's shown that the last 3 years with an average over the last 3 years of 308 and an OPS of about, 875 or so over the last 3 seasons. So Trey Turner is an absolute stud. He deserves to be there. Mookie Betts with the Dodgers. Mookie hasn't had the greatest year of his career, but it's still an 805 OPS. So even in a down year for Mookie Betts, he's an above-average baseball player, and obviously the All-Star game is not the same without Mookie Betts. And then Juan Soto on the year, 277 average and 832 OPS. It's not the same dangerous Juan Soto that we thought we were going to see this year, but he's still really, really good. So Betts and Soto having what they would call down years, but still All-Star caliber years.
Yeah, both guys are playing really good baseball. Soto, like you said, hasn't had the year that we all expected. He hasn't been that stone cold killer that we've talked about for the entirety of the show. But I'm excited to see what Soto does here, in this All-Star game as well as Mookie. Mookie's playing, a down year for Mookie Betts, which is still really good baseball.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And now the last 3 hitters we're going to talk about here for the National League All-Star Team reserves. 3 guys that I don't think a lot of people expected to be here, Parker. Kyle Schwarber with the Nationals. What a June he had. Now hitting 253 and 910 OPS, 25 home runs. And in the last 15 games, he's hitting 340 with an OPS of 1,412 home runs. What a stretch it's been for Kyle Schwarber. as well as Brian Reynolds with the Pittsburgh Pirates. What a year he's had, hitting 305, a 919 OPS, still only 26 years old. So this is a guy that, the Pirates could build around here in the future. They got him in a trade, in the McCutchen trade, as long as back in 2018, and he's been a nice surprise for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And then finally, Chris Taylor, the super utility guy with the Dodgers. What a year he's had, hitting 274 and 835 OPS, 10 home runs, 8 stolen bases. Chris Taylor doesn't do anything at a super elite level, but he does everything well.
He does, and Dave Roberts has been pushing for him to make an All-Star game for a while, and he finally gets one here, and deservingly so. He's played a really good baseball here for the Dodgers. And, I think he could play all 8 positions, on the defensive side of the ball. I think he could. So he's played really well.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
I'm struggling, bro. We got like 15 minutes left, and I'm struggling. But let's get to the pitchers. Corbin Burns, 2.41 ERA, a .9 whip, 120 strikeouts, which is just stupid. He goes to the All-Star game along with fellow Brewer Brandon Woodruff, who sits on the year with a 2.10 ERA in 17 games and 125 strikeouts, and a .78 whip. So, pick your poison between the two Brewers studs. You have Yu Darvish going to the All-Star game. Yu Darvish has a very strong season in San Diego, a 2.65 ERA. Jacob deGrom having one of the better pitchers, one of the better seasons that a pitcher's ever had. 7-2 with a .95 and a .54 whip. The pitchers on the NL team are just absolutely nasty.
Yeah, they are, and this is a scary team. Both Milwaukee pitchers on this list, as they should be. Yu Darvish has had a heck of a year, but deGrom is untouchable. We've seen deGrom do things that we have never seen pitchers do. Trevor Rogers has played well in Miami. He's on here as well. And then German Marquez in Colorado's played well also. So some really strong pitchers for the National League.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up Trevor Rogers, the 6'5 lefty. 7-5, a 2.22 ERA. He's been the Marlins' best pitcher all year. He goes to the All-Star game. German Marquez, a 3.59 ERA. He'll represent the Rockies at the All-Star game. Kevin Gausman and the Giants, what a story that's been. He's 8-3 with a 1.74 and 124 strikeouts. And then Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler's been the best pitcher on the Phillies. 6-4, a 2.05 ERA, and 139 strikeouts for Wheeler. So you could argue that the American League has the better hitters, but I think the National League's got the pitchers by a pretty decent margin.
Yeah, I think so too. Both all these pitchers are really strong. Wheeler in Philadelphia has been great. And then to get to these relievers, they're really really good. Hader, Kimbrel, Melanson, and Alex Reyes from the Cardinals have been all played really good baseball. So I think this is an interesting matchup. National League has better pitchers, but the American League I think mops the floor when it comes to batting.
Yeah, the Josh Hader on the year, a .55 ERA, 55 strikeouts in 32 innings, a .73 whip. Kimbrel has saved his career this season. What a year he's had, a .59 ERA, 20 saves, and a .65 whip. And then you have, like you said, Mark Melanson, who leads the league in saves with 25 and a 2.27 ERA. He's been very strong until the last week or so of the season. And then Alex Reyes in the St. Louis Cardinals. Reyes, a former top pitch prospect as a starter, got moved to the bullpen after some injury issues, and he's been great. 1.52 ERA in 41 innings and 54 strikeouts. Sometimes struggles with the walks, but overall just absolutely disgusting stuff. And his future is very bright in that St. Louis bullpen.
Yeah, it is. And I know lots of Cubs fans that were ready to send Kimbrel to the dumpster after the year he had last year, but he's had a heck of a year this year. He has, so he deserves to be in the spot. Melanson, like you said, leads the league in saves, and there's no doubting how good Hader is.
Yes, sir. No doubt about it. And so that does it for the All-Star segment that we wanted to talk about. We talked about all the reserves, all the pitchers. I guess on at some point on Thursday or Friday or whatever, we can do who we think's going to win the All-Star game. For some reason, the American League's won like 16 of the last 20 games, haven't they?
I think that's right. The American League has been dominant, I think, in the All-Star game recently.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. The National League's got some fireballers at pitcher, and I mean their hitters are no slouches either. Obviously, the American League has Otani and Judge and Guerrero and Salvador Perez and Bogarts and Devers. It's nasty, and it's the better lineup. But the NL doesn't have slouches either. They're gonna have Winker, Castellanos, Acuna, Tatis, Freddie Freeman. Um, so this is going to be a really interesting game, and I think this might be the year the National League gets it done.
Yeah, it's possible. Will pitchers win out here? That's the big question. As good as the American League hitters are, can guys like DeGrom or Woodruff, Hader, Kimbrel take over? And so we'll see how this fares out. It's going to be fun.
It sure is. We appreciate you hanging out with us here today on WWSU 106.9 FM and our YouTube channel. However you're hanging out with us, we do appreciate it. Follow us on social media at WWSU 106.9 or 1069, I should say. That's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're also in the process of making a brand new LinkedIn, so you can follow us there as well and connect with us on there in the coming days. Also, make sure you follow us on Twitch and YouTube. Like I said, YouTube. We'll be streaming live content throughout the course of the year, so you don't want to miss any of that. Follow Parker and I's personal accounts at Parker Testa, at ESPN Shea Neal. You can keep up to date on the show. You can keep up to date. Sports schedules are coming out here pretty soon at Wright State. Basketball, volleyball, those will be coming out, so I'm excited for that. And you can also keep up with stuff like orientation events and stuff that we're working on as well with WWSU as a whole. So it's a follow you're not going to want to miss out on. So before we call it a day, Parker, any closing thoughts?
This is, baseball's been really fun over the last few days. The Dodgers really goofed one up tonight. Had a wild pitch and a throwing error at third base, lost it for him in the 10th inning. So I'm just shaking my head at that. So my thoughts are, come on, Dodgers, shape it up a little bit.
Yeah. What a day in the sports world. I mean, the Suns win game one of the finals. The MLB All Star game right around the corner. We didn't even get into the Derby yet. Shohei Otani, Matt Olson, Pete Alonso. I mean, we got some really big names in the home run derby, so I'm excited for that. And then, like we talked about in the first hour, if you missed it, you can find it on YouTube as soon as the show ends. But we talked about the American Conference in our first college football preview, and that's going to continue throughout the course of the summer. But it was good to get that underway, get that ball rolling, and I'll probably be watching a lot of American football now this year because now I'm invested in a lot of those players.
Yeah, going through all these conferences, I'm intrigued to see what actually ends up happening. We're wrong a lot on this show, and we might be wrong with these conference predictions, but it's still interesting to see how it plays out.
Absolutely, it sure is, no doubt about it. And on that note, we're gonna call it a day. So for Parker Testa back in Noblesville, I'm Shea Neal saying so long. Appreciate you hanging out with us, and we will see you tomorrow at orientation and from 1 to 3 on Keep It Real. So don't go anywhere. Well, I guess you can go somewhere because the show's over, but come back tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. And until next time, keep it real with Testa and Neal.